Good morning. It's Friday morning. It's Scott Cullen here with another episode of Fridays with Frank. Great to be with all of you once again. And Frank, great to be with you too. What's on your mind today?
I wish I could say there was a lot of different things. But no. As we said previously on a prior Fridays with Frank, we obtain this list of questions by virtue of participating on a webinar with Patricia Ames and Andy Slowetsky and Amy Weiss. And the dealer sent in a great list of questions, which they never got an opportunity to ask. And I asked Patricia's permission if we could use them. She says, by all means. And so I would like to. One of the questions that caught my attention is this, and this is one that is repeated constantly. How many manufacturers do you expect will be left standing by 2026? Why everybody's in a rush to get rid of the people in the business? I have no idea. Let's just stop and think for a moment. Now we're talking about, obviously, the people we know and love the best, the dealer channel. So let's put those on the direct side apart, because where I want to go with this is something very simple. The business has really reverted to a dealer-dominated environment, without question, as opposed to the earlier days when it was direct. Now, what do we see that tells us that? Well, again, all we have to do is look at our survey and look at what Xerox is doing with dealers today. That's amazing. I mean, over the last 3 years, they've come on like gangbusters. I think they've come on because they had a product that dealers could sell and dealers wanted, production print. I mean, and so many people in our survey took on Xerox for the production print product, particularly those that had lead manufacturers that didn't have production print, like Sharp, Toshiba, and Kyocera, although Kyocera now is developing production print on their own. But as we speak today, that's a singular product. There'll be others, but right now. So we've had a lot of dealers take advantage of that. And based upon what CJ and I learned at the Xerox meeting last year, it's going quite well. In our production print issue, we interviewed Visual Edge, and they're knocking the hell out of Xerox production print. And they're not the only one. So the point is, Xerox is not going anywhere, of course, but we never were, but it was always a question as to where Icon was going to lead them. Well, the reality is he's happy collecting his check. At least that's what was shared with us, and I tend to believe it, because we're hearing from things at Xerox, who we have a lot of respect for, like Mike Petranti, where things are going well. And then also, when you run into somebody like Visual Edge and they say they're just having a great time with the product, and Xerox supports it. They're the #1 Xerox customer in the United States. So when you have that kind of potential, there'll be other opportunities. And I don't see why anybody should be going away. Now, the big conversation is, well, Ricoh's going to buy Toshiba. I can't seem to convince people why that's not going to happen. And they keep telling me, well, the contract says in 3 years, Ricoh can buy Toshiba. Well, if Toshiba doesn't perform, because obviously this is a startup of a new company, they put their 15% in, And if they don't do what they're supposed to do, yeah, then I imagine Ricoh will bug them out. But I think that's going to be a godsend for Toshiba, because their big problem has been building a better manufacturing capability, a design and manufacturing capability. And I think it's going to help both companies. Certainly, Ricoh had a decided objective. They wanted to get back to being #1 in Japan in terms of producing these types of products. I defy anybody to tell me that's not true. Being second to Canon and them is like they'll line up and commit seppuku if they allow it to continue. But the reality is they're not going away. Kyocera is probably the strongest financially in the industry, with more cash on hand than anybody else. Sharp is doing amazingly well. The acquisition by Foxconn has paid huge dividends, so that they have great resources, and they too are now expanding into production print. So if you've got Toshiba, you got Sharp, and you got Kyocera, who are on, let's call it, on the lower end of the spectrum, as opposed to Konica Minolta, Ricoh, and Canon, who's going? And where the hell are they going? Or who's going to buy them? I mean, I don't get the fascination. Consolidation can come in many different ways. People seem to forget that. I mean, you take a look at Canon and HP. Now, the HP printer, which has got a huge marketplace, that's a Canon engine. Canon takes the same engine and uses it in their machines. This is the same idea that Ricoh had with Toshiba. It is not any different. So here you got a case where you got the two companies selling the hell out of one engine. There ain't nothing wrong with that. So who's going away? Now, will there be companies that de-emphasize their efforts with dealers? That's possible. That's very possible. You know, these things come up all the time where a company wants to move in a certain direction, and while they will continue the relationship with the dealer, they want to make their major efforts someplace else. Of the 6 major A3 manufacturers, nobody's going anywhere. And that's my story for today.